Hello, wonderful people. My name is Jesse James Grazier. I recently received my PhD in pharmacology, and I'm making this YouTube video to connect with people who have similar interests in science that I do. So in one of my previous videos, I talked about how the inherent structure of chaos is fractal, and how all energy and matter, when they're combined through chaos, they'll have inherent fractal structure. So this video is about the immortality of living form. So you can see this fractal structure throughout all of life and throughout the universe. You have branching structures in trees, in ecosystems, in neural networks, throughout cellular architecture and tissues. And you can even see this structure in the way galaxies form filaments and in the cosmic web. And I think that this fractal structure exists because, after all, it is how chaos is how all energy inevitably comes together in free space. So, this chaos is even found in quantum systems, something called quantum scoring. So, if you just throw a tennis ball or a golf ball around in a room, it'll just show a random red pattern like this. But when you have quantum behavior, which is wave-like behavior that goes through that similar trajectory, because interference patterns form, you'll end up with an underlying pattern throughout the chaos. So this is a way that I think the universe can organize things even on the quantum level, even in total chaos. So the Heisenberg uncertainty principle states that there's quantum fluctuations shown on the right that's pervading all of space on the smallest scales and throughout the whole universe, even on the biggest scales. If you look closely, it'll be quantum fluctuations. So if those quantum fluctuations are interfering with each other, which they are, it's going to have a fractal geometry throughout all of space because it's those same quantum fluctuations everywhere. So you can think that that forms a coherent geometry that pervades all of space. And one way you can think of a coherent geometry that pervades all of space is a dodecahedron fractal, which is shown on the left right here. And the dodecahedron is actually used in some mathematical formulations of string theory because it is a good coherent geometry that can fill up all of space, which you can see these pentagons. You can have pentagons that are small and stack them together and create a dodecahedron. And then you stack those dodecahedrons on top of each other and they create bigger dodecahedrons, and then stack those on each other and keep going, and it creates bigger dodecahedrons. And you can just keep on doing that to fill up all of space and have a coherent structure that you can use mathematically to map out energy landscapes like these quantum fluctuations. So, in different interpretations of string theory, they have the many worlds hypothesis, and they also have quantum immortality, which states that whenever you die, your consciousness could move to a branch of the many universes that exist, and your consciousness just moves to a branch where you didn't die, and that is part of the evolution of existence. So I don't really think that. I just put this because there was other YouTube videos made about this. But how I think it works is something called consciousness-driven actualization of potential futures. So that it's actually your consciousness that pervades all of existence, this mechanism that allows any energy to be thrown into it and have a coherent framework. It allows it to guide how things will come together and how the future will unfold. So you can think about that in terms of evolution too, that the consciousness, the agency of an organism plays a role in evolution. So even though you have random mutations that are happening, which is described by neo-Darwinism, it's up to the organism how to use those changes, even if it's a negative or a seemingly negative mutation for that organism on how it's living. It can actually make the choice to change its living style and maybe turn it into a positive. So I think consciousness is what guides the evolution, even when you have something random and chaotic, like mutations occurring. So that brings me to my take home message, which is evolution isn't completely random, it's guided by consciousness. And this was actually thought by Darwin later in his life, but it didn't take off like his first concepts that he came up with, which is called neo-Darwinism. So organisms will acquire random mutations throughout life, which can positively or negatively change their morphology, their structure, and negative or positively affect their life. But it's up to the organism's own awareness or consciousness to decide what to do with those changes. And that is really what's going to change the future and change the evolution of the universe. So, thank you, wonderful people. I hope this was interesting and have a good one.